Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's session, Trying Something New, Faculty Reflect on Teaching with Wikipedia for the First Time. I'm Helaine Blumenthal. I'm Senior Program Manager here at Wiki Education. Before we jump into today's session, just a few housekeeping tips. If you have any questions, please feel free to put those into the Q&A box, and we will get to those at the end of the webinar. Or if you have something that you also want to share in the chat, that's not a particular question, but a comment or a thought or a link, please feel free to use the chat as well. Okay, I think that's mostly what's going on in terms of housekeeping. The session is being recorded. Okay, great. So again, I'm Helaine Blumenthal. I am Senior Program Manager here at Wiki Education. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Wiki Education, we're a small nonprofit organization, and our mission, broadly speaking, is to connect the worlds of academia and Wikipedia. We do that through a few different programs, but today we're going to be speaking in particular about our Wikipedia student program. And that's where we work with faculty at post-secondary institutions in the US and in Canada who have their students write for Wikipedia as an assignment in the class. The program has been operating since 2010, and we are regularly working with upward of 350 classes every semester. Around 6,000 students, and these students are regularly adding something around 5 million words to English Wikipedia every semester. So it's quite robust. And today we have the opportunity to hear from faculty who taught with Wikipedia for the first time in fall 2025. So if you are a prospective instructor and you're hoping to learn more about the assignment, you're going to get that really fresh perspective. I'm going to pose a series of questions to our panelists, and I'm hoping that we're going to have a really great back and forth and great discussion here. Okay, thank you everybody again for coming, and especially to our panelists. With that, let's get started. Okay, first things first, I would love our panelists to introduce themselves. If you could tell us your name, your institution, and your area of expertise. Allison, would you get us started?
Sure thing. My name is Allison Marsh, and I'm an associate professor at the University of South Carolina. I'm a public historian of technology in the Women and Gender Studies department.
Thanks, Allison. Jennifer, why don't you go next?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Jennifer Bernstein. I am teaching faculty at Texas Tech. I teach remotely from Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I'm also editor-in-chief of the UC Press Journal Case Studies in the Environment.
Excellent. Taneisha, how about you?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Taneisha Means. I'm at Vassar College, a small private liberal arts college in New York, and I teach in the Department of Political Science.
Great. And Rodrigo?
Hello, everybody. My name is Rodrigo Pedroza. I'm visiting assistant professor of neuroscience in the neuroscience department at Kenyon College, and my area of expertise is behavioral neuroscience.
Awesome. Thank you so much again to all of you for being here. Okay. So my first question is, can you tell us your Wikipedia origin story? And what I'm curious to hear in particular about is how did you decide what motivated you to incorporate Wikipedia editing into your pedagogy? And in which class, or classes some of you are teaching with Wikipedia again, have you now incorporated the Wikipedia assignment into? Let's go backward. Rodrigo, would you get us started?
Sure. I implemented this assignment for my 300 level behavioral neuroscience class. I have only done this once, and one of the most important reasons for implementing this or for starting this project is that I wanted to do something different for accomplishing a very specific goal of my course, which is improving or helping students develop their scientific communication skills. I wanted to do something different from the traditional project in which they research a topic and they present to the whole class, or the traditional essay, because they have done all those things many times. And when you incorporate this, sometimes it works, but many times it doesn't, because students are already tired of this kind of format. So I wanted to do something completely different. And I thought of editing Wikipedia, first of all, because I'm a huge fan of Wikipedia. I have been very interested in doing something like this for a long time. And now that the opportunity arose, I thought this is a great time to try it out and see how it works. So that's why I did it.
Excellent. Thanks, Rodrigo.
Thanks.
Taneisha, how about you? How did you get started with all of this?
Sure. For me, so I teach in the Department of Political Science, and my subfield is American politics. And something happened for me during COVID and just the pandemic. I think I became increasingly dissatisfied with students spending so much time researching, writing, and working and producing material that I would then read, I would think is great, but then it didn't have reach beyond me. It would sit on my shelf or in my drawer after I've graded it, but it just felt like that work could be used to be impactful, and other people could learn from all of the time and work that went into the assignments. And so I really thought about like, how could I have the same skill development, but the work being impactful again beyond me? And so I really had a desire for more civic engagement in the class. Um, I was already a very community-oriented person, and so I planned around with, yeah, a few ideas, initiatives, but none of them really took off until I co-created this family literacy night at the local elementary school in our school district. And so we started this literacy night, which was reading and writing, and my students would go into the classroom every week. And it wasn't really night, it was the daytime. It was a before school program for 2 hours. My students in groups of about 2 to 3 would go into the classroom with me in a social studies classroom, and we would read diverse texts and have an entire lesson, but it still used a lot of the same skills that the students are using in Wikipedia, just in that context. And then the teacher that I was working with transferred, and I was thinking, oh no, I'm going to have to go through the process of having to, develop a new relationship, professional relationship, and create this new thing. And what if I don't have an interested party? So I was really struggling. And then I came across Wikipedia, this sort of education project, and thought, is there a way to use Wikipedia as the vehicle to do this kind of civic engaged work? And so I tried it last year in my first year writing seminar. So I was teaching this first year writing seminar class that's topic based. So it was all on American politics and thinking about a multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy. But then thinking about like, how do I teach writing or help improve the students' writing who's in that course? And one of the things is, of course, like the traditional political science writing that's theoretically driven, it's argument based, but then also at the heart of it was just thinking about how can I help them improve their research skills, engaging with secondary scholarship, but to do so in a way that doesn't start with their own argument first and then trying to find a source to actually support their argument, but instead just to read. Like read different kinds of research and figure out what you don't know, and then find your way to the Wikipedia article to then add to that. And so that's how I got my start. So that was my lower division experience. I'm doing this Wikipedia assignment again in this semester. I teach a 200 or intermediate level class dealing with judicial politics and law and courts. And so it's similar. The students are having to think about who are the people, the political historical moments, the policies, the legislation, the laws that are really relevant. That's not a lot on Wikipedia at this moment, or we needed to add sources or other kinds of material. And that's where we have been with it.
Awesome. Thank you, Tanisha. Jennifer, how about you?
Good morning, everyone. Well, like Rodrigo and Taneisha, I think I came with some of the same feelings, which is wanting to make a public-facing an assignment that doesn't just end with me, right? My office mate in graduate school told me once, he said, Microsoft Word is where ideas go to die. And we might need an updated version, like Speed Grader is where ideas go to die, but some version of that. And that was something that clicked in me early in my scholarship, where I always wanted to have one foot in the public facing door. Oh, also, I can't remember whether or not I said that I teach environmental studies and sciences and geography over at Texas Tech. You don't quite know what comes out of your mouth at these things. So yeah, like Rodrigo and Taneisha, I was motivated by that same sentiment, wanting to give students also an audience just behind myself, because I found that in this assignment they definitely behave differently in their writing and I would say their level of caution and precision than I think they would if they knew that it was just going to go to their teacher and they kind of figured out that I'm a softie in grading. Something that I've always tried to emphasize in my courses is how to evaluate sources. I used to call it like evaluating internet sources, and I used Robert Harris's CARS guidelines, so credibility, accuracy, what was it? Reliability and support, I think. Anyway, it was just a framework, like there are many, to help sort of guide students through the step-by-step process. You know, it's an art, not a science, but how to figure out what is a good source, what is a reputable source. As you know, over the years, we've seen students be flooded more and more with information from all sides, with it being harder and harder for them to recognize sort of what that reliability looks like. And so I've always felt like, you know, I've always tried to include a module on that in every course I've taught. And I thought that this was another way to do that. But yet again, coming from a different source, right? Sometimes they don't always listen to the teacher. So this is coming from somewhere else and having that rigor be imposed through the community rather than just through me. And then finally, one thing, you know, when the assignment came through the listserv, you know, one thing that really attracted me was that it was an inspiration. It was a positive story that I could tell students. You know, I feel that students feel like they're drowning in information inaccuracy. They're barraged by AI and anxiety and searching for truth, not knowing who to trust. And I feel that in this assignment, they're interacting in a safe, supportive, collaborative space that through working together, we make information better rather than worse. And I found that that was a really, you know, the Wikipedia story is an inspiration. And I loved getting to share that with students in a time where I feel like they really are trying to navigate the same kind of crazy, brave new information scape that we all are. So I taught it this last fall to a reading seminar of graduate students at Tarleton State. They chose their own topic, and I'll talk a little bit about hopefully how these courses differed. And then I just finished an 8-week intensive with undergraduates, an intro level undergraduates course that also had a lot of non-traditional students enrolled. So those are the two capacities that I've taught it in so far, and I've learned a lot each time. And I will keep teaching it in the future. It's been really fantastic for achieving kind of what I've wanted it to. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, Allison, last but
Yeah.
not least.
So I have been a longtime fan and supporter and user of Wikipedia, but I had never really been a contributor to Wikipedia until last year when I was on sabbatical and I had the opportunity to take a course that was sponsored by Wiki.edu, the 250 for the 250th. It was aimed at public historians and cultural institutions trying to get their content online for the nation's semi-quincentennial or 250th birthday this year. And so I basically took the course that was that the dashboard has that I am now teaching, but you know, with a different set of intentions and material. With that, I learned so much about the policies behind Wikipedia that it made me such an even stronger evangelist for the value that Wikipedia has and what it plays for in society and how it, you know, is supporting intellectual rigor in very interesting ways, but also recognizing that there are imbalances and the research that I was doing on my sabbatical was actually on women in the early decades of electrical engineering. And one of the things that I learned in my course was that of all of the biographies on Wikipedia, at least in English language Wikipedia, only about 20% are of women. And I was like, okay, we have more women out there. And so that was, you know, tied to my own personal research. During the course that I was taking, I crafted my first Wikipedia article, and I'm going to drop it in the chat because it's Mabel McFerrin Rockwell, who is this super awesome woman engineer who up until last, you know, June did not have a Wikipedia article about her. And so you should read about her and see like, why did this fabulous woman not have an article about her? And so that became my mission. So I actually just transferred into the Women and Gender Studies department, and I've been incorporating this assignment into the Intro to Women and Gender Studies course, where I'm having all of the students write new articles on women. I'm at the University of South Carolina, so I wanted to use local South Carolina sources, our materials that our library had ready access to. And so I had confined it to women of nobility from South Carolina. And that's where we've gotten started. And so it was such a great success. I'm repeating it this semester. I am planning on using it in my summer course, and I'm planning on using it again next fall in an entirely different course. And Jennifer, I might end up talking to you a little bit about that because I'm going to be teaching ecofeminism. So I'm going to sort of think about how to use that there.
That's great. Thank you guys so much. Okay. Um, and just okay, let me jump into our next question here. Um, how did you introduce the Wikipedia assignment to your students? Like, it can be it's a very different assignment than I think what students are used to. So I'm curious how you introduced it to them. What were some of their initial reactions to the idea that they were going to be writing for Wikipedia? And then I'm curious if they expressed to you like any preconceptions about Wikipedia. And do you think those like did you observe those changing over the course of the semester? And then lastly, I'm curious if your own ideas about Wikipedia have changed now that you've taught with it and gotten a little bit deeper into the weeds. Does anybody want to start us off? Okay, I'm just going to pick
Um,
Jennifer. Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say I could start. I'm happy to start.
Go,
So in
Taneisha.
terms of how I introduced it, I just at the beginning of the semester, I had it written in the syllabus as an assignment. And because it's a first year writing assignment, I just described them all the same in terms of the output and what's to go into it. But I didn't specify that it was a Wikipedia until I got more into the assignment. Not that I was like a murder mystery or anything, but just wanted them to focus on what the output would be so they didn't get overwhelmed by thinking about a new system. But then I started talking about Wikipedia specifically, and I had an entire discussion about their own personal use of it and then their academic use, what they had heard. I mean, these are first year students, so I asked them about high school. What did you hear your high school teachers talk about Wikipedia? And so hearing a lot of the same kinds of narratives of, teachers discounting Wikipedia, of course, as a source and saying don't use it, etc. But then them secretly saying like, but I still use it. It still pops up when I Google anything. It's like the first option. And so like I engage with it, I trust it. And so they had that, but not in the academic space. And so I think I was really trying to help them bridge these two divides for them that felt very stark. But then we started to use it in the classroom. And so I do a lot of in class, like applied work and like research activities. And so we would just bring it into the classroom and say, these are the same kind of articles that we're going to contribute to, the ones that we are finding value in, the ones that we are going to the sources and looking to see where these people who, contributed to this entry, where they got their information. And so it was helpful to backtrack in that way to show them that this is legitimate writing and research that goes into it. And I also framed it after we got into Wikipedia as sort of this education project and the portal, the dashboard, all of that, but to help them think about it as supporting an archive, a public archive, I think was something that they hadn't thought about before. It's sort of a general knowledge archive, and that they would be not only read by others, but accountable to others in terms of this knowledge and awareness. And then the last thing is, I think this is tied to something that Allison mentioned earlier, but thinking about these people who've often gone understudied and their stories gone undertold, so they're not legible broadly. And so I was trying to say, like, the same people that we're going to engage with in this course, that's very specific. It's really, I mean, you all are. I mean, this is a privileged space to be in, but how can we expand this beyond this? How can we make legible all these people, these lesser well-known people, laws, policies, institutions, et cetera? Um, I think that there was also a lot of disbelief about it being like a graded assignment that I was going to implement at Vassar. I think it was just something very different than what my colleagues typically assign. And so they had questions about how this was going to be graded. But I think beyond that, which I created a rubric for, and we sort of co-developed it, and then we refined it over the semester. But also thinking about someone else is going to read their work. And I think for first year students, that was probably the hardest challenge, is that it wasn't just going to be me. They already came in feeling quite fragile. That's why I'm in a writing course. I don't feel very strong about my writing. And so just trying to get them to move beyond that. And I would say all of our conceptions about Wikipedia changed. I mean, I came into it already feeling very positive about it, just because of all the prep work that I had done with Helaine and the team in terms of the pre-wiki workshops and stuff. But I think at the end, we all felt very strong and confident about what we did and what we contributed to the project. Yeah.
Thanks, Taneisha. Anyone else?
I'm going to jump in just because I think I was more or less the exact opposite. I came in with like so much enthusiasm. I was just riding this high of like how much I had loved taking the course that I just like threw it at my students. I mean, yes, it was all in the syllabus, it was all laid out and everything like that. But I was like, yeah, we're going to do this Wikipedia assignment and it's going to be great. And the students were like, whoa, what are you doing? And so similarly to Taneisha, like to a person, every single student was in disbelief because they had been told since middle school that Wikipedia was not a good source. And so you have to overcome all of that. I mean, over the course of the semester, we did a lot more in-class discussions and we got to the understanding and they were all on the same page and they did great work on their assignments. But I will say that at the end of the semester, when I was reviewing my evaluations, a lot of the students didn't actually make the connection between the assignment that I had made for them and the content of the class. And in my mind, it was absolutely clear. We're doing intro to women and gender studies. There is this gender imbalance. We are fixing the gender imbalance. This seemed to tie together like so neatly, but the students weren't making the connection. So I'm actually teaching the exact same course this semester. And so in the first week of class, I actually assigned an article. Again, I just dropped it into the chat there. So about the gender imbalance in Wikipedia, so that students would take the content that we're learning as an intro to women and gender studies, and then see how that is reflected in the assignment and what we're doing and how we're trying to shape Wikipedia. And so, fingers crossed, it's going to go a little bit more connected this semester, but I think we're already on that path.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison. Jennifer or Rodrigo, anything to add?
Sure, yeah. Well, I was trying to think of something to add that wasn't just saying yes, they could be thinking they shouldn't use Wikipedia, but I actually just thought of something, which is that I do find the students come in with this sort of baseline Wikipedia bad. And when I think about that, what it makes me think is that somewhere along the line, we're not teaching citations correctly. Right? Like this is indicative of a larger problem, which is what is a citation? How does it work? What is Wikipedia? What is it meant to do? And I think that if we think of it in a positive way, we can sort of see the degree to which what's a much larger conversation has been reduced to Wikipedia bad. So I'm wondering if that could be a better and more curated entry point rather than what I do is kind of just be like, come on, guys, just give it a shot. And most of them, if they stay engaged for the first few weeks, do kind of start to get it. But getting over that first hump is definitely tough. I also did want to say that, students don't like to go to another platform. That's just how it is. And some of the folks, I teach a lot of non-traditional students, and I find that some of them really have a hard time just getting in and getting started and getting comfortable. It is very well laid out. I really think that on the Wiki EDU side, things are very, very, very well done. But one way or another, some students are going to struggle for various reasons. And I think that I will say, though, that what I saw was the students that were struggling with the Wikipedia interface and kind of gave up in that part of the course did the same in other parts of the course as well. So it may just be sort of overall attitude towards the course in general, rather than just the Wikipedia assignment. It's just the tech provides a different type of hurdle to that student success. And this is just anecdotally from what I saw this last semester. So those are the only two things that I have in addition to I agree with my fellow panelists.
Thanks, Jennifer. Rodrigo, anything to add?
Probably the thing that I would add is that something that I also found when I was introducing the assignment to my class is anxiety, a lot of anxiety, especially because we were going to work in hard science, quote unquote, topic, neuroscience. So they were very anxious because they knew that their contributions were not only going to be read by me, that they're going to have a sort of impact in the real world. So they were anxious. So I told them at the beginning, listen, this is the first time I do this too. So we are all anxious. That's okay. We are all going to learn along the process. Don't be, or let's try to reduce that anxiety that we are all feeling as we move we move along. So I think that was a very important thing for them to know. Also, I was very, very clear, of course, about the goals of doing this, what I wanted us to achieve. So that was very helpful at the very beginning.
Yeah, and that anxiety is something that I hear a lot from faculty, whether they're doing it for the first time or like teaching it for the 10th time, that it's interesting, like we think that today's students are constantly like interacting on social media, making all these public facing edits, but they get it with this Wikipedia assignment that like this is somehow different and that it matters. So yes, like that anxiety is very real. And I hear it quite a bit. Thank you all. What interesting perspectives. Okay, and so the next question, and I think actually all of you kind of even mentioned some of this already. Jennifer, you started talking about, the challenges of learning two different platforms. So my next question is around challenges. So, well, like with any new project, there are going to be challenges, and there are going to be kinks to work out. Wikipedia editing is like very different than what pretty much anyone is used to. The rules can be complicated and confusing. And so I'm curious how you navigated maybe some of the more difficult aspects of the project and kind of what you took away from that. Jennifer, maybe do you want to get us started since you kind of already alluded to that?
Um, Let me think. Can I actually pass for a second?
Yes, for
Someone else?
sure, for
Okay,
sure.
ready.
No, of course. Anybody else want to take that? Kind of what were some of the challenges you faced and how did you navigate those?
Okay, I jump in.
Yeah, great.
Aside from what you were mentioning, we have already mentioned the platform is there's a learning curve that is kind of steep for some students. It's difficult to get used to these different environments, different ecosystem, and how things work. It's also is a bit challenging to learn how to edit Wikipedia, to navigate, for example, sandboxes and that kind of things. But also something that I have found challenging is to teach in a somewhat objective way what, for example, you say substantial contribution. Because, for example, in my syllabus, I told them the best grade you can get is if you make a substantial contribution. So what is that exactly? What does that look like? I thought it would be much easier to explain and to show and to communicate, but it was not. So that was a very interesting challenge that I found. For example, there are students that tend to go super deep in a very specific topic and be super technical and use a lot of jargon. And on the other hand, we have students that tend to be very broad and sort of general. And you find everything in between. So it's in my experience, or in my course, it was a little bit difficult to really communicate what exactly is the right depth and the right breadth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's something that we try to tell faculty when they do this, when they sign on for this project, that right, like, it's not like a term paper where you can say, okay, I want you to write, 3,000 words, right? Because what you can contribute to Wikipedia is going to be so dependent on like, whether you're creating a new article, whether you're adding to an existing article, what are the available resources, sources and the available literature. And so, yeah, like you may have one student that adds like 500 words and another student that adds 1,000 words, but they could be like equally valuable contributions. It just depends on like, on the article and the topic that they're contributing to. But that's real challenging when it comes to, grading and assessment and kind of like setting student expectations. So absolutely, Rodrigo. Yeah. Any other comments?
Sorry, real quick, that kind of intersects with
Yeah.
something that I was going to say, which was defining a substantive contribution in the context of, sort of students, going from being consumers of information, I think, to contributors and their confidence in that space, right? Because making that shift, right, from reading Wikipedia to creating Wikipedia, I felt that sometimes in the creation, they kind of wanted to nibble around the edges of the assignment and do kind of the formatting stuff and the images and the easier things, because they just weren't quite sure that they were ready. So I think that one of sort of the underlying challenges, at least with the undergraduates, was giving them that confidence and hoping that there is a safe space for them to land there. On the other hand, I would say that with my graduate students, I found that it was more of they struggled sometimes with maintaining the neutrality in topics that they had a lot of expertise and passion about. So it was a little bit of the opposite challenge. They jumped right in and they knew exactly what needed to happen to their article. So I think that being sensitive to the different student populations and the side that they're gonna, the graduate students are gonna write more and the undergrads are gonna write less. So they're gonna maintain those behaviors within the assignment as well, and to gauge your expectations accordingly, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, Jennifer. I always make a joke like tell your students like they're not going to break Wikipedia no matter how hard they try. But
Oh,
like
can I jump in on that one? Because
yes, yes.
are trying. So not really trying, but like I was going to say one of the difficulties is actually just sort of like technical expertise. And so, we haven't actually talked at all about like the structure of how the Wiki dashboard works, or what we've just sort of jumped in and said that we're teaching these courses. But for anyone who's on the call who is a new professor thinking about incorporating the assignment, I have to just say that Wiki has this fabulous platform that they call the dashboard that really does all of the scaffolding for creating a course, choosing a topic, giving you tutorials on how to edit, how to add references, how to add info boxes, background on the policies. You guys have given absolutely everything to make this work, and it is all built upon Wikipedia. So when you're working in the dashboard, you are working on Wikipedia. You're just not in the main space. You're behind the scenes. And so, but there are technical things that, I came into this, gung ho, but I did not have enough experience editing Wikipedia to know exactly what I was doing. So when students, like if the students just followed the instructions, it would be awesome and everything would work right. But the students do not follow the instructions. And then they are like, but it doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, now let me figure out what you did to make it not work and where you've created this other sandbox or, this other page, or what has happened. Why is everything, I don't know, in giant letters or whatever. And so there's part of me just sort of figuring out the technicalities behind editing Wikipedia, which, by the way, like once you figure them out, it's really quite easy. And so it's like there is a learning curve, but it's not the worst learning curve in the world. But the thing that I have to say is that the dashboard has this great little button that says get help. And if you hit that button, someone from the staff of Wiki will get back to you amazingly quickly to answer your questions, and they will work with you and get that to you. And I say that because it's not like a get help that will then just go off into the ether somewhere. Like they are so responsive to helping new faculty get on board. They also offer, virtual office hours where you can drop in and be like, hey, I am having trouble with XYZ. How do we fix this? Or how do I structure this? And it's an opportunity for you to talk with other faculty members as well as WikiEDU staff to work through this. And they have so much more experience that it is really a great community that you're coming in.
Thanks, Allison. Yeah, and just to give you color, yeah. So we provide all of the support. Like you are like not alone in doing this, and yeah, and we genuinely are here to help you. And I didn't mention this at the beginning, and I should have. This program is entirely funded, so there's no fees or anything to participate. Everybody gets full access to all of our resources, digital and human. um, Taneisha, anything to add before we move on?
Just really quickly, I would just say like I am not a super tech savvy person. And so I was personally a little overwhelmed by the dashboard, not because of the dashboard itself. I think it's clear, just me and the way that I engage with technology is not great. So, but what I wanted to say was that there's a lot of agency and autonomy that faculty have to use the dashboard as much or as little as they want. So for me, I use the dashboard to simply train the students. So they did the training through the dashboard and then they finally submitted through the dashboard. But all of my students' other work was in Google Docs and Google Drive. So that was just the way that I handled things. But I would just say that for those who are kind of questioning whether or not they have the capacity to learn a new system, you can absolutely use the dashboard as much or as little as you want.
Thanks, Taneisha. Okay, in the interest of time, let's move on here. So now that all of you have taught with Wikipedia at least once, I was hoping you could talk about what do you think the major pedagogical outcomes of the project are? Like, what are students actually learning or getting from this project? Um, and I'm curious, like, how do you connect it? How have you connected it to your coursework? Allison, you started talking about this a little bit. And how would you compare it to a traditional writing assignment, like a term paper? So I want to get us started. Um, Allison, would you mind getting us started? I know you talked about this a little bit already about, connecting it to the coursework, but I'm curious, like, if you could talk more about, like, what do you think students are pedagogically getting out of this project?
I think she's
Oh,
frozen, but I'm
sorry.
happy to jump in. Oh, I
Oh,
think
that'd
she
be
might
great,
be back.
Taneisha. Go ahead. Great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
okay. I think for me, I would say research for research sake. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, like students go into with like no preconceived ideas or claims, and so they're not trying to support an argument that they're making. Instead, I'm having them read broadly, just different kinds of engagement around whatever topic they selected to see what's missing. So I feel like that's an entirely different way that they have. Yeah, are pursuing research, at least academic research in political science. So that's one thing, just like the research for knowledge attainment. Then also, I would say the research skills, they have to identify secondary sources. I bring in the social science librarian twice into my class, once at the beginning of the assignment and then once in the middle of the assignment, so we can revisit what sources they found. And it was really great because she caught in both instances sources that the students thought were really great, but they weren't, but it was a teachable moment for all in the classroom. So they're learning how to refine their filters for researching secondary sources in the database, et cetera. I thought that was really great in terms of just research skill development. And then I would say it's also an important style of writing. So in political science, as I mentioned, we're very like theoretically driven, sort of evidence-based for conclusions, but thinking about like what it means in a longer paper where you might have to just talk about someone else's work and it's very fact-based. It's not a claim, right? And so having them write in that way where there's no slant, there's no skew, they're simply relying on the facts of the literature. It's not persuasive other than it in terms of the quality of their source material. Like I really wanted them to have that. So for me, I would say those are the major pedagogical outcomes for my students.
Awesome. Thanks, Taneisha. Anybody else want to add to that?
I would add to that, very similar to Taneisha, it was very important in my class, and something that I observed is that they actually improved their research skills. They were better able to identify what sources are trustworthy and so on. But also something very important that I observed is that they learn or they improve their ability to locate the gaps in the article, because in my assignment they had to identify the specific article that might be improved related to the course content, and that was also something very challenging for them, and it's very challenging in general. Identify what is not there, what can you add that is significant, that actually makes better articles. So in my experience, that was a very important pedagogical gain that they achieved, being able to detect what is still not there and that is significant, that is important, that is not just a fun fact to know or something that is nice to know but is not absolutely relevant. So that's another thing that I found interesting. Important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually like one of the early exercises that we have every student do is to like learn how to evaluate an article because it's such a critical skill. Jennifer, Allison? If not, we
I
can
don't have
go
much to
ahead.
add. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to once again echo Rodrigo and Taneisha and likely Allison. But I would just say that I would think that the students definitely behaved as though the stakes were higher. And I think that that might be partly because the assignment was just much better matched with the information landscape that they engage in on a daily basis than a traditional .docx. Wikipedia is alive, it's changing, but at the same time, it's archived. And it's collaborative and evolving and involving multiple perspectives from multiple people. I mean, they acknowledge this, and they see this in other sources of information. So I think that they um, instantly recognized that in the context of the assignment and sort of acted accordingly. And all my goals that I had in terms of teaching how to evaluate different types of sources, they achieved through this assignment in a way that I didn't have to sort of hit them over the head with in the same way that I used to before. So.
Awesome. Thanks. Okay. Well, guys, I'm actually going to skip one of the questions that I had here because we're getting close to the end and I want to leave some time for Q&A. Um, so I'm going to skip ahead to the AI question. Oh my goodness, the dreaded word. But I think it is important to talk about because this is, I think, on everybody's mind. And so, like, obviously AI has really upended a lot in higher education. Faculty are struggling to find assignments that are meaningful. They're struggling how to assess like what students know. They're deciding like, even just to what degree they should use AI or use, have their students use it at all. And there's just a lot of unanswered questions. Wiki Education has its own guidance around AI and how to use it and to not use it with the Wikipedia assignment. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts about the Wikipedia assignment, as a pedagogical tool, in an age of AI. Like, did you talk about this with your students? Like, did you talk about AI, in terms of Wikipedia with your students? And do you feel like the Wikipedia assignment helped you better understand, the limits or the potential uses of AI?
Yeah, I'm
I don't
going
know
to
if,
speak to this real quick.
yes.
I actually I assigned this in conjunction with an AI evaluation journal when I taught it with my master's students, and it was a very stark and intentional contrast because the Wikipedia assignment opened the black box. And you were able to see the sources, the edits, the knowledge process. That opacity was gone, and that was the point. And I didn't have to make that point. The students saw that, and so I felt that teaching those in tandem was actually really, really productive, at least at the graduate level.
That's great. Okay, looks like Allison is having some technical challenges. Tanisha, Rodrigo, anything to add about AI and how specifically kind of how it related to the Wikipedia assignment or how you sort of dealt with it with the Wikipedia assignment?
I would add that first of all, I banned AI totally. I told them you are not supposed to use it. Something that I also want to communicate to everybody who is planning to use it for the first time. Wikipedia detects when someone is pasting something right from ChatGPT, and will flag it, and you will know, and the student will know, so everybody will know. So that is very useful. But something that I also did was require students to come see me at specific points during the semester so that we can chat kind of informally about what they were doing, if they were experiencing any challenge, or just to go over their edits up to that point. That was very helpful because they know that the transparency in their process will be even greater. They have to justify their whatever they're doing, and also they will get much more meaningful feedback. So something that I found very useful is these one-on-one meetings at specific points during the semester. Of course, not every week, naturally, every couple months probably, but that was very helpful. And I saw that pretty much. I had only a few instances of students using AI, but other than that, I would say almost nobody used it.
That's great. Yeah. And Wiki Education's policy like is, at its base is, yeah, we don't want students copying and pasting any output from a chat from an AI chatbot into Wikipedia. Often that content just is unreliable and fails verifiability. We do have some ideas around how students can use it, but that's kind of our red line. Yeah.
Yeah, I apologies to everyone. I'm in a hotel, so I don't have control over my internet. But and so I don't know if this was mentioned, but it sort of ties from the previous question to this AI question. And again, I have very clear AI policies in my syllabus, like I assume everybody does at this point. And Wikipedia has very clear AI policies. But if you're talking about like pedagogical moments and learning experiences, when a student does use AI and it is immediately flagged and they receive an email and I receive an email and their Wikipedia entry suddenly has a big top hat saying, this has been, flagged as, AI. I feel like that has had so much more impact on student understanding consequences of, their use of AI in, the so-called real world than anything that I could say as a professor saying, don't do this, you won't be respected or whatnot. When the student actually has a community reaction where they are outed as having, not followed the rules, the students there feel it, see it, and I think will learn from that so much more than me just saying, nope, you got a 0 on this assignment. So put it out there.
Um,
Can I
yeah, and
add
so
something? Oh, sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Just to add, so for me, I was really nervous about that, but I participated in a transparency and qualitative socio-legal, like a workshop a few years ago, and it was all about how to build and screenshot all of your sources. So I just incorporated that from the very beginning into my wiki assignment. And so I put in the chat the Google Doc for one of my students' entries. So you can see where at the bottom, they've literally screenshotted all of their sources for everything. So for me, I get around AI by requiring them to actually show me where their source material came from.
That's really great, Taneisha. Thank you for that, for all of these responses. And AI is an unfolding situation, and we are learning. And so, we view this as a partnership, and we are trying to, understand how students are using it and what its limitations are, et cetera. Okay, I'm going to quickly have one last question here before we jump into the Q&A. If you can all, let's do like a quick one couple of seconds each. Is there something that you learned from teaching with Wikipedia for the first time? Something that you wish you had known going in that you now know, that you'd like to share to folks who are considering doing this? And if not, we can jump
I'm
into.
just going
Oh,
to say,
yeah,
I
yeah.
100% underestimated the challenge of students writing short declarative sentences. Yeah, this so much of my editing of the students was like taking away all of the sort of extra buildups, fluff that they want, paragraphs that what they think sounds right, and I'm like, nope, simple declarative sentences. I thought that they could read Wikipedia and model it, and I underestimated that.
Well, Wikipedia writing is definitely different. Anything else? Any other sort of pearls of wisdom that you'd like to share to somebody thinking of doing this for the first time?
So I mentioned I brought in the social science librarian to come and talk. So I think using your resources at your institutions is helpful for the research part. But in terms of the writing part, I incorporated 2 peer reviews before I even saw it for the first time. And that captured, I imagine, a lot of what I received, like the issues. So when I got it, they were in pretty good shape. So I evaluated them, they were graded, and then I gave them final feedback. And then at that point, they were able to add it to Wikipedia after that final feedback and revision. So 2 peer reviews and then my feedback as well. But that process helped, I think, to have, allow for their work to have the most impact and be accepted.
Thanks, Taneisha.
I think I would just say that, if you're thinking about it, it's sort of a low risk, high reward scenario. It's really well scaffolded. The WikiDU team is incredible, and it's really flexible. It can be scaled to face-to-face, online, asynchronous, synchronous, different learner levels. You can pick a topic, you can assign them to topics, and you can do them in different time frames. I would just say there's a lot of ways and options to easily modify it using the interface that's already there to sort of serve your needs. If you want to just dip a toe in the water and try it in a smaller capacity or make it the cornerstone of a project. But there's a lot of flexibility to teach it in sort of whatever way that works for you at that time.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. Rodrigo, anything?
I would only emphasize what Jenny was saying. The flexibility is awesome. You can really change the course in any way you see fit, any way works for you, of course. And I would also add that there are already rubrics there that you can use. Those are very helpful. So if you don't know how to grade this, there are rubrics there, and they are pretty good.
Awesome. Thank you all. Colleen, can I pass it over to you for Q&A?
Absolutely. Yes, we have a couple of questions that we can go through before we're at the hour. We have a little bit more time left. I want to go back to the idea of the AI flagging with this question. And so someone's asking, how do you deal, and curious if anyone has dealt with this on panel, but how do you deal with student work that is flagged as AI, but is a false positive, which can happen, right? How do you build a student's confidence back up after this happens? So has anyone on the panel been in this scenario before? Jennifer, any thoughts? I see you nodding.
Well, what I've tried to do is to talk to Helaine and sort of show the black box of AI detection, and that also is a work in progress that Wikipedia is trying to get this right and to make them really understand in a big information landscape why we want to be overly cautious in this space. Right. So I try to sort of expand the conversation, and show that we're, give them the benefit of the doubt. We're all on the same team. Let's fix the problem and move forward, rather than penalize. A lot of students just don't know what appropriate use is. So take it as an opportunity to learn and move forward and be transparent that we're all on the same ship trying to figure out how to get these flaggers right. I don't mean to, Helaine, there's a lot more into it than just that. So that's my faculty.
Yeah. And we're also we're not trying to penalize students. Like it's exactly what Jennifer said. Like, we're operating out of an abundance of caution. The detector that we're using is, we've done a lot of vetting of it. It's quite good. We have a lot of information about our AI stuff that we can share. But yeah, this is a partnership, and we're all out to make Wikipedia the best it can be. And so, that's the bottom line.
I just want to add, I haven't actually, my students have readily admitted that they in fact had, when they were flagged, they were guilty. So I haven't had a false positive. However, I have had the challenge of what Grammarly is now doing. And so I've had very detailed conversations with students and for people who are unaware of what Grammarly has been doing, because the students, all of my students, like their school districts had paid for them to use Grammarly since sixth grade. So they thought that this was just a tool. But Grammarly has recently moved from doing just like simple subject verb agreement type thing to actually really suggesting all new writing, which is AI. And the students, I mean, understandably don't get the distinction between what used to be a tool and what is now considered AI writing that is not allowed. So having those open discussions up front about the use of Grammarly is pretty important.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Okay, I'm going to pop over for, I think we have time for one more from the Q&A box. This question of interacting with the community, I really like. So this idea, someone asked, how did you prime your students for the interpersonal aspects of Wikipedia talk pages? So the possibility essentially of engaging with Wikipedia editors that could be around the world. Did you have conversations about that? And then maybe Helaine could speak to the resources and guidance that Wiki Education provides for the assignment.
I'll jump in just because I'm a public historian, so I deal with the public all the time. And one of the things that I'm always telling my students is that if you are a public historian and you're writing for broad audiences, the public does talk back to you. I regularly get emails from my written work that, a lot positive, some negative, and you just have to work with that. And so I have a tendency to use my own personal experience about how to engage with the community. But built on that, because this is the first time most students are writing for an audience beyond their peers or their professors, we do build up the idea that this is a community, but also going back to the pillars and policies of Wikipedia of assuming good faith and, that it really is a friendly space where people want to help you and, work through explanations of how you can use the talk pages to improve your own work. So it's not an antagonistic relationship with the community. It really is a community that is trying to make a better product.
And I can just briefly add that, yeah, we have a whole training module literally on it's called communicating on Wikipedia about, what it means to be part of this community. Because right, when you contribute to Wikipedia, you're not just in some void. You are joining a community. This community has all sorts of norms of behavior and policies. And so we want students to feel a part of that community and to learn how to sort of act within that community. And again, like Allison said, all working towards making Wikipedia better.
Great, thank you all. Helaine, I think you have time for one more quick
Yes.
question.
Okay, I have one final question. And that is, what are you most excited about when it comes to teaching with Wikipedia for the second time?
I'm excited. I'm excited to. I'm interested in how participating in this sort of public authorship space affects the student as a learner, especially in terms of being a receiver of knowledge to being a creator of knowledge. So I kind of want to dig into that a little bit.
Awesome.
I'm really excited about the next course that I'm designing specifically around the Wikipedia assignment, and that is my ecofeminist course. And we're going to be delving into Superfund sites in the city where we live, which I'm fascinated by. And I'm so excited about making that information public and, so that everybody here will learn stuff that is currently deeply embedded in EPA websites. They're going to be able to easily access, through Wikipedia. So I'm very excited about that.
Rodrigo.
I would say for me, as a person who studies sort of democracy and representation and thinks about inequality, political inequality, I'm really excited always for my students to introduce me to new people, policies, political, historical moments. I learn so much, and there are always these niche topics. I'm I've never heard of that before. And so, yeah, I'm always excited to go along with the journey with my students in terms of what they are learning. So what I'm also learning.
Rodrigo?
I'm excited about making the assignment a much more significant part of the course, to really design the course sort of around the assignments and to enhance the connections between the assignments and the course contents.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. It was so great to hear from all of you. If you're interested in teaching with Wikipedia, please visit teach.wikiedu.org, where you can sign up to get more information. Colleen put the link there in the chat. And then finally, our next speaker series is now live for registration in April, and that is on the topic of biodiversity. Again, thank you everybody so much for joining us today. Thank you, Allison, Jennifer, Taneisha, and Rodrigo. What a great session, and I hope everybody has a great day.